Have you ever been lost in a foreign country and you didn't speak the local language? Well, it happened to us in Naples here. We are going to tell you how we got lost and I gave up, what our thoughts are on Naples, and how we only spent 44 euros when Royal Caribbean would have charged over 250 euros for us to do a similar thing. While we had a well laid out plan, the first thing we did when we got out of the terminal was to go to the information booth to find the best mode of transportation to our first planned stop. We knew we wanted to take transportation such as a taxi, bus, or metro to the furthest spot out and then walk our way back, which we anticipated the walk, if we would have done straight walk, would have been about an hour and a half. When we got to the booth, they had some nice maps that helped confirm our offline Google Maps that we downloaded. The booth attendant was able to recommend the cable car option, which we were not aware of. Just a short 10-minute walk and 260 euros for both of us to go to the top was a very inexpensive option. Now, Mrs. Tips for Cruisers here is going to tell you a little bit about the cable car experience and how smooth that went.
So the cable car itself was actually fairly simple to figure out, as far as there were two designated routes that were basically a start and stop. It wasn't like going all over the city in the crazy patterns. It was straight up, straight down. So it was really simple. But what we didn't realize is that where we got on, which is Augusto, I believe, we had to go all the way up to Piazza Fugo, which was where we were trying to get to, and it had 3 stops in the middle. But what we didn't realize is it didn't go like as you kind of thought it would, where it would go 1, 2, 3 and climb up. It went all the way to the top and then stopped on its way back down. So we accidentally had to ride it twice.
I guess how we're stupid. We didn't even get off the train at the right stop. All the way back down. We're gonna get off this time.
1 hour later, and we finally made it to the top, and we're going to Castel Sant'Elmo, which is the very first castle and the best image that you see as soon as you get out of the terminal. It's up here on the hill, overlooking the cruise terminal, all of Naples, and the coastline. And getting there was pretty simple because we had the offline maps, and all you had to do was follow these brown signs. And I'll let Mrs. Tips for Cruisers tell you about the 15-minute journey there, which is really uneventful, but more about the castle and what we recommend if we liked it or not as well.
So in our research, what we found out was that if you're willing to kind of go the distance, so to speak, and go up there, it's extremely picturesque. It has amazing views of the coastline, as Brian said, and just beautiful, beautiful views of the entire city. It was insanely cheap. It was just 5 euros to get in, and it's just self-guided. You get to walk all around the grounds, and of course, at the very top of the castle, you're just walking along the tops of the walls, and pictures everywhere. I do mean that, like, you don't just have one side you can take pictures on. You can literally walk all the way around the top and get different angles, different views, and you're not fighting for the spot to take the picture like happens at a lot of tourist attractions.
And this is where the cloud turned into thunderstorm and rain. Now, Mrs. TFC was smart enough to pack a light rain jacket, while I was smart enough to pack a ball cap, and that's about it. So, because of the thunderstorms and the rain, we start to skedaddle and get out of there. But luckily, we got to see all the views and take in the experience. We probably would have spent a little bit more time there. We only had 10 euros invested, so not a big deal, but we did get to see the very best view of Naples, in our opinion.
And we were quite literally getting soaked. It wasn't a light rain anymore, and because of the lightning and things, and we were being very high up, I was like, we should probably not be up here. So we did try to find a taxi, but one of our things that we learned, they stressed this enough that we were very leery. They insisted that you should always pick up a taxi from a designated taxi stand and not just a random taxi that you see, or a random person trying to obviously pick you up and take you, because they might not be a legitimate taxi service. So we were trying very hard to find that taxi stand and could not find it. And I think it was just a combination of language barrier, and our phones were being a little weird, and that mine would work and then it wouldn't work, and pick up a signal couldn't pick up a signal. So it was a little stressful.
But we did find a lovely cameo shop, and While it's not my thing, it was something that Mrs. TFC saw on the way there. It was like, oh, I'd like to stop there. So we had a chance to get out of the rain on our way looking for our taxi stand and look around in there. And I'll show some footage here, but I'll let Mrs. TFC explain what is a cameo shop because I had no idea.
So most ladies will know what a cameo is. It's a very like antique practice of, make pins and pendants out of them. And these were extremely unique. They were obviously handcrafted, you could tell. Every picture was different. It wasn't something stamped out of a factory. And they actually had a station where they were actually making them. You could see all the tools set up where these were genuinely all handmade. The man was very friendly and was telling us all about it. It was a nice little break from the rain and beautiful pieces, and they were actually quite reasonable. I did not buy anything, but I will say it was not overpriced at all. And if that's something you're interested in, I highly recommend it.
And we left the cameo shop and asked for directions to the taxi stand again. And once again, we could not find it. And it started really coming down now. And my goal is just not to get drenched. At this point, honestly, I given up. I wanted one thing in Naples. The castle, it turned out to be really, really cool. But I came to Naples to eat pizza. You can't come to Naples and not eat pizza, especially since it's the birthplace of pizza. But my wife, Mrs. TFC, did convince me, hey, we'll go back to the cable car, but I agreed, let's at least just look for a pizza place on the way back. But every place that we found was a sit-down restaurant charging 20 or 30 euros each, and we were on a budget and we didn't want to spend that kind of money, and we wanted the authentic good stuff. It was probably good, but was it worth 20 or 30 euros each when we got in Rome for 5 euros each? Well, we continued our journey, and Mrs. TFC noticed that we are only a couple blocks away. So she spotted it out there in the corner, and I'll let her explain what it was like and maybe how excited I was.
So about 3 blocks away from where the cable car was located-ish, again, in these off-site neighborhoods, away from the tourist area, we walked up, and it was a place called Pizza Bonito. And we immediately noticed, of course, it's not sit down, it's to go or delivery only, which was okay. We're like, all right, we're just gonna suck it up. But it was absolutely fantastic. We happened to catch a local who was there picking up his own lunch, and he spotted us and immediately was sympathetic. He could tell we did not know what we were doing, and we were like drenched rats standing there. And he very kindly just literally ordered for us. He just ordered in Italian. To everyone in there was speaking Italian. No one spoke English. So he ordered our food for us. Wonderful food. We crouched under an overhang next door to the restaurant and ate in the street.
Go ahead, take a bite.
If I can get it out of the box. I'm gonna need help. But it was worth it. It was so delicious. We had pizza and pasta for a total of 10 euros. I mean, it was ridiculously good and ridiculously cheap.
Listen, I was a happy boy. I was ready to go home. The rain finally started to let up, so we could actually walk back to the cable car, and it was only a few blocks away. So once we got to the cable car, it was still in a bustling, busy area. Of course, not everyone spoke English in this bustling area, and you knew this for a couple different reasons. Number one, the signs, they're not in English anymore. They're just in Italian. And when you walk in, there's like one worker that might speak a little English, and the rest of them not. So you just kind of point, and I ended up getting a €2 street food, a tuna wrap, which is pretty decent. My wife liked it more than I did, and we just continued to walk around the streets for another 30 minutes or so before we headed back to the cable car. But I'll let Mrs. TFC fill in on anything that I may have left out.
One key thing that is absolutely wonderful, we stumbled upon a delicious chocolatier. Literally like in a neighborhood. It was not near a whole lot of other businesses, so it was kind of almost overlooked, but it was so delicious. We'll put pictures up and, tell you where it was. I can't remember the name of it, but it was so wonderful. We had these delicious truffles, clearly handmade. I mean, it was great. And we ate those on our way through the streets to the cable car.
This reminded me of our local chocolatier that we have in our hometown. This price was 48 euros per kilogram, so that's 2.2 pounds. So it was a little bit cheaper than what our hometown was, but it was only 7 and 60 euros for 9 pieces of delicate, delicious chocolate.
So on our way back, the cable car trip was way easier now because we knew what we were doing, and we didn't ride it twice this time, thankfully. So we just quickly bought our tickets and rode it back down.
It was €2.60 for both of us to go back down, so €5.20 total round trip. Well, this time it was the express train, and we figured it out to actually get off this time. We didn't make that mistake. It was fun riding the cable car, but I don't need to overextend my stay. Plus, let's be real, I didn't pay for that second trip.
So once you get back to the cruise terminal, they had some little shops in there, very kind of touristy things. This is the same kind of stuff in a lot of the stores, but it was a very nice, dry, covered area. It was like a little indoor mall. They had some nice things. I'm not going to say there wasn't. So I bought some stuff, but again, be careful. Not everything's from Italy. There was stuff from Pakistan, India, China. You just read the tags. Make sure if you're going to buy something, it's legit. Because what's nothing more disappointing than buying something that you realize when you get home, this was not made in Italy and things like that. But it was a nice terminal regardless. There was one really negative thing about this terminal, though.
The signage was not very good. Part of that was our fault in the respect that when we got off the ship, we had to go up some stairs and through the terminal, through all these different shops that weren't quite open yet. And when we returned, we forgot that you had to go downstairs. And we made some laughs. We asked, oh, it's over there. Well, we walked by it 2 different times. Part of the issue, besides no signage, is the worker that was there, they weren't exactly what you'd call doing their job. So we walked by her 2 times, and the 3rd time was a charm when we got down. Now, the total cost in euros for this Naples self-led excursion was very cost effective for us, which was what our goal was when we did this 9 Greek island cruise. The total transportation was €5.20 round trip for the both of us. The pizza and pasta is 5 each, so €10 total. The chocolatier, €7.60 for the both of us. The random street food I got, €2. The gifts in the terminal was actually the most expensive thing at €24. If you include the gifts, we spent a total of €44. If you take the gifts out, we only spent €20 in Naples. If we would have done this excursion through Royal Caribbean, it would have cost over €250 for the both of us and would have been nearly as good. So, if you're adventurous, I would do that. But also, let us tell you what we thought about Naples and if we would do it again.
So would I do Naples again? I would. I mean, it's unfortunate about the rain, but let's be real. It could happen to anyone at any time. It's just rain. That really wasn't the problem. I think it was just the kind of unreliability of the phones and some confusion, and had it not been raining, we would have done a lot more. Now, what we did notice right away was that it's probably, I'll call the dirtiest place we've been, and I say that because it definitely seemed like it was a larger city kind of feel, like just kind of busy and bustly and not necessarily catered to the traveler. So everywhere else we've been has been very clean and picturesque. I would do it again, but I would probably spend the money and go up the Amalfi Coast and see what that's like. I know there was a bunch of excursions going there. I did hear that some got canceled because of adverse weather. That would be my only I would like to try that maybe next time.
Now, if you're concerned about a language barrier, you won't have any troubles in Rome, as many locals were bilingual and very helpful navigating the public transportation with us. Tap your screen or click here to learn how we did Rome on a budget. Thank you. This is Brian and
Mrs. TFC.
We'll see you over in the next video. Thanks for watching.